Let's go back. Can we do that? Can we just do that? When we didn't know. We didn't know any of this. What are you?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, anniversary celebrators. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I'm actually awake for one of the first times this week. So, yeah, I'm ready to talk some Osgood.
All right. Also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, so we are talking the latest Osgood Perkins movie this week. Now, before I get into the synopsis, this is a movie that was directed but not written by him. So I think most of the stuff he's done so far, he
All the
wrote.
stuff.
All of
Yeah.
it? Okay. I wasn't sure about because he did Hansel and Gretel or Gretel on Hansel, right? I wasn't sure if he.
I mean, he wrote the screenplay, yeah. And then he also wrote the screenplay for The Monkey, even though that's a Stephen King property. Yeah.
Okay, so this is his first kind of like director for hire project, and we'll see if that kind of makes a difference. So, Keeper, IMDb says a romantic anniversary trip to a secluded cabin turns sinister when a dark presence reveals itself, forcing a couple to confront the property's haunting past. All right, how haunting was it? Let's get our general thoughts. Venom, what did you think of Keeper?
All right. Well, considering my history with this director, I think my opinions won't be that much of a surprise to most of our longtime listeners. I will say that this is, even for Oz, a very odd little movie. I think this movie is going to live and die by its third act. I think that people are either going to love or hate this third act. And I've seen it already. I've seen it with multiple, I've already listened to about a dozen reviews online where most of those reviews are negative. A lot of people either aren't really understanding, kind of the what's going on with this one, because admittedly Oz leaves out a lot of information, so you kind of have to connect a lot of dots yourself. This is definitely a movie that demands your attention, because if you miss something, you're going to be left even more confused. Now, as far as where I land on this one, I don't think it's going to be any surprise to anyone when I say I absolutely fucking love this movie. I loved every goddamn second of this movie. This movie has some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've seen this year. I mean, the way that he's able to just instill a sense of dread in you, just in his viewers, excuse me, just by using a particular camera angle or a particular shot, a composition, whatever the case may be, and even some of the images that he throws at you, it definitely leaves you off kilter. Now, admittedly, this is not Long Legs, where I said it before and I'll say it again with Long Legs. Long Legs is an amazing example of continued dread from beginning to end, literally, and this is not an exaggeration, literally from the first frame of Long Legs, there's just a sense of something bad is going to happen, and you don't know when and you don't know what. This one has a little bit more of a traditional build-up. You know, you get the loving couple going on their 1 year anniversary trip to a cabin in the woods, and shit goes sideways when they get out there. Now, for the first half of the movie to, I would say, the first two acts, it's fairly cut and dry. You know, the movie is either going to be a haunted house movie or potentially a slasher. And then, like I said, the third act is going to be the kicker for most people. When we get the explanation of what's actually happening here, I can see a lot of people just getting completely turned off by the concept, and I understand that. But for me, I relished this movie. I love everyone that was in this. Tatiana Maslany is turning into one of my favorite actresses, honestly. I love everything that she's done. All of her characters have this kind of matter of fact way of communicating to people. I mean, in The Monkey, the way that she would speak to her sons is not anything you would ever expect a mother to say to her sons, to be so blunt and say, yeah, well, death is a part of life. It just, some of the things that she said, just they come off as so matter of fact. She's not sugarcoating any statements that she makes. And yes, I will be that person. I am in the minority. I loved She-Hulk. I don't care. As I've said in the past many times, I know how to have fun, and I know that Marvel knows how to have fun. And sometimes, people just don't know how to have fun. They think that every Marvel movie should be Endgame. My friends, not every Marvel movie has to have like end of the galaxy consequences. They can be fun too. And I had fun with She-Hulk. I love Tatiana in that role. I love Tatiana in Orphan Black. I love her in almost everything. I'm honestly, not even almost everything I've seen her in. I fucking love her. I love her characters. I love her style of acting. It just works for me. And I also find her adorable. So, there's that. But yeah, in this movie, again, I absolutely love her role here. I love how she handles this style of heroine, of horror. I guess we can still say horror final girl. It works for me because she doesn't have her head in the clouds. She's very grounded. Without giving away spoilers, it just her matter of fact sense of communication and everything else just works for me. The way she talks to every character in every movie that she's in, it's utterly entertaining to me. So again, as far as I'm concerned, Osgood and Tatiana together again, it's another home run for me. Now, this is not a 10 out of 10. This will not be my number one movie of 2025. So unfortunately, Oz does not get the distinction of having my number one movie 2 years in a row. But what I will say is that this will definitely be in my top 10 from the cinematography, from the performances, the sound design, the use of licensed music. I absolutely love the licensed music that was used in this movie. I love the context of how the lyrics of those songs work with what's happening on screen. He's very much like who's the guy I'm thinking of from Guardians of the Galaxy? Damn, I can't think of his damn name now. That director. But I mean, if you think back to the director of like Guardians of the Galaxy, the way that he utilizes licensed music in his movies is masterful. And Osgood is getting to that point. He did it with The Monkey, and now he's doing it again here. His choice of final song in this movie is just chef's kiss. I fucking love. I walked out of the theater both times with a smile on my face. I was able to see the movie twice. I wanted to see it a third time because this is a movie that if you enjoy it on the first watch, you need to watch it a second and a third time because you just catch so much more. The dialogue made so much more sense to me on second watch when you know where the story's going. And I know that's probably more of a detriment to some people. Some people don't like having to watch a movie more than once to fully grasp everything that's happening in it. And I understand that. This is definitely going to be, I hate to use the term, but I use it because everyone knows what I'm talking about. This is going to be another elevated horror classic. I look back on this and I just the themes that he's talking about, the performances that he gets from his actors, just I mean, I'm short of calling this a masterpiece. I mean, this isn't Frankenstein by any stretch. It's not what Guillermo del Toro was able to do with that story, but this is right up there. It's a gorgeous movie with great performances. Yes, it is a slow burn, and yes, that third act is going to be very divisive. And I would have no problem with people who hated the movie because of that third act and just hated the reveal of what was happening. But ultimately, for me, it worked. And the ending left me with a smile on my face. You know, once again, for a petty little guy like me, this ending works. So I know I'm getting long winded here. So let me just leave my general thoughts as saying, I absolutely love this movie. I think most people are going to fall in either the love or hate category, with some people, you know, in the middle. But for me, this was just another home run from Osgood Perkins, maybe half a step down from Long Legs, because it didn't have that extended sense of dread that Long Legs had. But ultimately, I love this movie and I highly recommend it. I would say watch it on the biggest screen you can get to. That's it for me. Back to you, Mike.
All right, we got one vote for Keeper being a keeper, so we'll go over to Don for your thoughts on Keeper.
Unfortunately, this is not a keeper. I found myself so thoroughly bored and completely underwhelmed here that I don't have much to say about it. Um, I think the idea is okay. The idea in theory works well for what it is, but this thing is just so slow and it's so bland. And okay, yeah, the cinematography looks good, but there's very little else about this that kind of works. It just feels so pedestrian, and it just feels so much like every other generic, stranger out in the woods kind of a movie that, okay, yeah, it has a bigger budget and, more high end actors and, better cinematography. Beyond that, this thing just feels like every other generic Tubi movie that just kind of drops without explanation and then just, stays on the service for 5 months before anybody ever notices it. I don't have any real interest in the characters. I don't care about their relationship. There's very little chemistry between the two of them. It just feels really bland and dull, and I don't really care about what happens with them. The explanation for what's happening isn't all that interesting. Like Venom says, the third act kind of starts revealing things, and I'm not really that interested. It doesn't really differentiate itself from the hordes of other films out there that kind of play with this kind of a scenario. It just kind of comes off as just a run of the mill kind of okay movie. It's so dull and bland, and it's so sluggishly paced that it kind of loses itself before anything ever really happens. And there's little about it that just kind of sticks out for me. It just feels like I said, it just feels like a generic film that drops on Tubi or Screenbox or any other streaming service out there that just kind of fills in the ranks and doesn't really stand out for any real purpose. Like I said, I mean, it looks great. There's some creepy moments when you're still trying to figure things out, and it kind of starts playing with what's actually happening around them. But beyond that, I don't have much to really say about it. I mean, it genuinely just feels like any other film that would show up on those kinds of streaming services, just with a bit more budget behind it. But I mean, yeah, other than that, I don't really have much else to add to it. There's not really much in the way of special effects. There's not much in the way of, like big spectacular set pieces to really, you know, blow this one up. It just plods along. Nothing really much happens. I'm not interested in their relationship dynamics. It's kind of a just sluggish affair that doesn't really do much. So, yeah, I guess not really for me. I knew for a second. I can tell that this is going to be one that Venom liked, but it didn't really hit home for me. So yeah, real miss. So I guess Mike, back to you.
Okay, I was kind of interested to see what everyone would say about it because being that Oz Perkins directed and didn't write, I was curious like what he would do in this case because I agree very much with Venom that for fans of Osgood Perkins coming into this movie like expecting Osgood Perkins, maybe put the monkey aside because that was specifically like maybe horror comedy, which is was a little out of his wheelhouse to begin with, but I think the third act is really what is going to divide people. Like I don't want to sound like I'm just saying the same thing, but that was my thought, like just walking out of theater. Because, and the reason I say that is because the first two-thirds of the movie, it really screams Osgood Perkins. It's slowly paced. It's deliberate with like impending doom, but not really showing its hand or showing its cards. I will say there is, once we get into spoilers, there is a little something I thought was maybe unnecessary at the beginning. We get some like scene, I guess you would call them like flash scenes of like stuff happening to other characters. I almost think that that didn't need to happen because like I almost didn't even want that alluded to. It does go with the story. But I think they could have just reserved doing that for later in the movie. But that aside, that doesn't really affect my overall enjoyment of the movie. The third act is really kind of where it's like it kind of shifts from what you would expect from Osgood Perkins to something different. But I will say that didn't really hurt the movie for me. I actually did enjoy this one quite a bit. Most of the criticism I've heard of it is because people are arguing that like it almost could feel like a different movie took over when we kind of get the reveal of what's going on. I mean, to be fair, it's a movie with a very small cast. I would say like if you have any experience with like horror at all, you probably have a good idea anyway who's going to turn out to be like the antagonist just because there's so few choices of who it's going to be. So I don't even think that like reveal is a detriment because I don't see how you couldn't have that feeling. Now, I do kind of like how they play with how this person is an antagonist because I think things are getting suggested up to when the third act really kicks in or whenever whatever point the reveal happens of what's actually going on, what's being planned. And I like that because the story is so kind of small scale and self-contained through two-thirds of it that you probably think you have like a good idea of like what's going to happen. You're like, oh, well, of course this character is going to turn out bad. The character is going to do something to this other character, but I think it's alluding to like something much smaller scale. So like when we get what's going on, I actually was like, holy shit, this is pretty cool. I mean, this is a lot higher concept than I had expected leading up to that point. And that's where I think it kind of gets like fun and creepy because, like I said, some of my favorite Osgood Perkins movies so far have been slow paced, deliberate, and it kind of sticks with like the more self contained ideas and plot and reveals. Even when it goes like a somewhat higher concept, it still feels like much more subdued. And this one, it just kind of gets wild in the third act. So I thought that was like a nice change up, especially because of the first two-thirds of the movie kind of maintaining what you would expect from Osgood Perkins. Now, a lot of people have the opposite opinion. They think the third act goes too wild or over the top for what we were getting leading up to that. So, I have heard that criticism, and people that have asked me, I've had people like just send me DMs, and I'm like, hey, it's probably going to come down to the third act for most people. Some people like it, some people don't. I happen to like it, so to me, it just makes the movie a strong movie. I enjoyed the acting. I mean, it's very imperative with a small cast that the acting and story elements keep you engaged, and I thought they did. Thought it was wonderful. I just love that kind of like slow crawl towards something. You know, there's dread, and it kind of feels that sense of dread to me is there like from the beginning of the movie, just because it's like okay, this relationship kind of feels a little off to begin with, and then we're going to a cabin in the woods, and I don't think anything ever good happens in a cabin in the woods in a horror movie. So there, you know where the ball is rolling on just dread. And like there's a lot of characters trying to reassure themselves. You have like your typical side characters with the skepticism. And I I just thought it led to something very interesting and very different from what the movie was suggesting up to that point. And the fact that it worked for me just makes it a really good movie. So I'll leave it there for now, just because I don't want to spoil anything yet. So back to you, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can really say that isn't the, spoiler or some kind of story plot point. I mean, we've already talked about the acting, the cinematography, the score, the sound design. Obviously, this isn't the kind of movie that speaks to Don's, the type of horror that he likes, and that's fine. Like I said, all opinions are valid. And Don was absolutely 100% correct to know that it would be something that I would like, because obviously Oz Perkins is slowly becoming one of my favorite directors. I mean, he may have passed with his last two films, and yes, I love The Monkey, so shut up. But with his last two films, I mean, I might actually put him above Jordan Peele now. I love all three of Jordan Peele's movies, but I mean, Oz is, obviously it has a longer filmography now, and he's hit a home run pretty much every single time. So, yeah, I mean, what can I really say? As far as him directing someone else's work, not writing this one, I can kind of see where maybe with that third act, it gets a little Oz in a sense. I didn't dislike it. Like I said, I thought it was different. It was something that I hadn't seen before, and I was very happy with it. As far as the human protagonists of the film, excuse me, the human antagonists of the film, I think that character did fine. I mean, as far as like Don's comment on their lack of chemistry, I mean, I think there was a reason for their lack of chemistry, a very obvious reason that we'll obviously talk about during the walkthrough. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe Darren, Malcolm's brother, maybe his character is the only one that may have rubbed me the wrong way. Not necessarily because of his attitude, but more about how cavalier he was with, how can I put it, the rules of what was happening here. And this is one of those examples of rewatching a movie and seeing something you didn't the first time. At one point in this movie, Darren is speaking to Liz, who is Tatiana's character, and he says to Liz that my brother is a little slow. Now, when I watched the movie the first time, I thought that was just a younger brother making fun of his older brother, saying that, maybe he's a little mentally challenged or whatever. But then on second watch, I realized, no, that's not at all what he's talking about. He's talking about something completely different, something that takes Malcolm a year to do that he does in like a weekend. And obviously, we'll talk about that during the walkthrough, but just that, like I said, that cavalier attitude of what he was doing, I'm like, how's that not going to come back and bite you at some point? I don't know. So like I said, I'm already delving into spoiler territory, so let's go ahead and give that final spoiler warning. If you have not seen Keeper, then go ahead and you are interested in seeing it, go ahead and pause the show, go check it out, and rejoin us for our detailed thoughts on the movie. If you have already seen Keeper or have no interest, then please stick with us and let's get into it. I am not going to give this thing the walkthrough that it deserves. For those who don't know, I've been working crazy hours lately, and I'm incredibly tired, and my brain is just not in the mindset to be able to break down an Oz Perkins movie the way it deserves to be. So I'm just going to go over the finer points of this movie. and we'll talk a little bit, and hopefully I can have some answers to some of the questions that Mike alluded to earlier on why certain things were included in the film, because I think I know what he's talking about, and I have a very specific reason why certain scenes were included in the film, but we'll get to that. So let's see. Where does our movie open? Our movie opens with just Liz and Malcolm, right? Going to they're driving. They are a couple. They've been together for a year. They're going to Malcolm's kind of cabin in the woods, if you will. I mean, it's not really a cabin. To call it a cabin in the woods might be a little bit of a misnomer. This is a mansion. Like, this is a gorgeous house. It's big. It's very modern. So yeah, cabin might be, let's call it a vacation home, maybe. We find out early in the weekend that Malcolm's cousin Darren lives across the way in a matching house right across the way from Malcolm's place. But whereas Malcolm is the quieter, more grounded of the two brothers, Darren is like the over the top, the playboy, if you will, the womanizer, that guy, the big doing those illicit fancy drugs and drinking every single night and blah blah blah, partying with models. They're very opposite brothers, for whatever it's worth. Now, upon arrival at the cabin, Liz, Tatiana Maslany, plays Liz. Liz notices that there's a cake in the kitchen, and she's like, "Why is there a cake in your house?" And Malcolm explains it as, "Oh, it's the caretaker. The caretaker basically leaves me a cake every time they know that I'm going to be coming out." Obviously, right from the start, that sounds kind of interesting, especially the way that Oz has the camera slowly zoom into the cake. It's like, you're not really hiding anything for us, Oz. But yeah, eventually. By the way, Liz, we don't really find out what Liz does. I mean, I think she works in a bookstore, maybe. I think they might have mentioned that's where she and Malcolm met. Malcolm is a doctor, a surgeon, and so obviously that explains why he can afford to have a mansion in the woods, if you will. So right from the start, when we walk into that house, just like I mentioned earlier, the way that Oz positions the cameras and how he shoots some of the angles, it puts you off-putting right away. Instantly, and added with the score, it's like something's wrong with this place, and Oz is setting us up for something big later in the film. Now, on the first day there, Darren shows up, who's not supposed to be there. Darren lives there from what I understand, but Malcolm didn't expect his brother to be here this weekend. But Darren, of course, shows up. He shows up with a Russian supermodel named Minka, who, claims to not speak any English. But Darren is, obviously, talking her up and, making fun of her, obviously, since he thinks she doesn't speak any English. Now, as soon as the cousins walk out of the room, Minka looks at Tatiana, then looks over at the cake, and then looks back over at Tatiana and just says, "Tastes like shit." That's it. That's all she says. "Tastes like shit." And then Darren comes back to the room. He collects up Minka. They go off on their merry way back to Darren's place. And instantly, as soon as Darren leaves, Malcolm brings up the cake. And Malcolm, obviously wants her to eat a piece. So, he's talking up the cake. When he pulls out the cake, Tatiana Liz notices that it's chocolate, which she doesn't like. Again, just another example of Malcolm not really paying attention, because Liz is like, I've never liked chocolate, like ever. So obviously, they've been together for a year and he doesn't know that his girlfriend doesn't like chocolate. So that tells you a little bit about Malcolm right there. Reluctantly, now she doesn't want to eat the cake, but Malcolm is very insistent, which again just makes him seem like such a red herring. Like, like I said, the movie feels very cut and dry for the first 40-50 minutes of the thing. He is insistent that she eats a piece of the cake. She doesn't want to, but she just relents. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, why aren't you asking if he's going to have a piece of cake? Like he doesn't cut a piece of cake for himself, which seems really odd to me. You'd think as a woman that would be one of the first questions, like, why aren't you eating a piece? Like that doesn't seem suspicious to you, but nope, nobody questions it. She takes a piece, she eats one bite of her cake, and then Malcolm asks her how it is, and she repeats Minka's words, tastes like shit. Yet she continues to eat it and finishes the piece of cake. Now, instantly, like I said, Oz is not holding back here. As soon as she eats that cake that night, start the hallucinations. Instantly, we start hearing voices up in different parts of the house. We start hearing footsteps, creaking wood in upper parts of the house where supposedly no one is. At one point, Liz talks to her best friend Maggie, who instantly does not trust Malcolm. Thinks that there might be something going on, but obviously she doesn't have any proof. But she's just looking out for her friend. Blah blah blah. She does offer to come out and pick up Liz, but Liz declines the offer. Blah blah blah. Let's see. The next day, after a series of hallucinations, maybe not hallucinations, but at one point we get one of the prettiest shots of the movie right here when Liz is in the bathtub. Oz superimposes a river rushing past her, but the river isn't superimposed over her face, just the entirety of the shot, but not her face. And I just love that shot. Like I'm sure there's a lot of symbolism behind that shot that it would take someone smarter than me to explain, but it's just another of a series of gorgeous shots in this movie. Now, at the same time, we see something outside the window, do that thing where they breathe on the window to make it foggy so that they can draw something. Earlier in the movie, Liz did that with Malcolm. She, blew on a window and then drew a heart in the condensation. There we go. In the condensation on the window. In this scene with Liz in the bathtub, something repeats that to her from outside the bathroom. Mind you, the bathroom is on like the third or second floor of this house. So there can't be anything standing outside that window. But yeah, we see the exact same thing. And I even have a theory about that too, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I have a lot of theories about this movie, some ridiculous and some might even be correct. Who knows? But anyway, let's see. The next day, Malcolm tells Liz that he has a patient coming out of a coma that day, that out of a medically induced coma, and that he's waiting for a phone call or a text to let him know that she came out okay and that she's awake and responsive and everything else. So he's kind of setting her up for what may happen later. And then, of course, a little later, he comes into the room and says, I'm sorry, Liz, I'm going to have to leave. I got to go to the hospital. My patient, Mrs. Portnoy, as he calls her multiple times in the film, did not come out of the medically induced coma, which means that she's actually in a coma now and that they may need to perform surgery, blah, blah, blah. Of course, all of us seasoned horror fans in the audience our gears are moving and we're like, oh yeah, Malcolm, likely story. So of course he leaves. While he's gone, Liz has another phone call from Maggie. At this point, Liz explains to Maggie everything that's happening, and instantly Maggie's like, oh my God, he's married. He's inside his wife's pussy right now. I think that something along those lines was the line. And of course, Liz was upset about that because, no woman wants to be the side piece, which literally Maggie accuses her of, which gets her to hang up the phone. Again, she's hearing voices. At this point, she ends up seeing like a female spirit, but it disappears very quickly. It doesn't stay there for very long, but Liz is very freaked out. Now, throughout the movie, there are some great shots too of things behind Liz. At one point during her telephone conversation, something is standing behind her, something humanoid, but then suddenly we see the neck extend, and literally the head just extends and the neck extends until it's almost right on top of Liz, but then when she turns around, there's nothing there. So kind of a fake out jump scare there, which I kind of like. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going over every single hallucination that we see in the film. There's a lot of them. So while Malcolm is supposedly, at the hospital taking care of his patient, Darren shows up, Malcolm's cousin, and he acts surprised that Malcolm left her alone. He's like, "Wait a minute, are you serious? You're alone right now?" On your big weekend. And what's funny is that Darren keeps saying your big weekend, which is probably giving Liz the idea that she's about to be proposed to. But Darren's talking about something completely different, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Darren brings a bottle of scotch with him, and he wants to, have a few shots with Liz, have a couple of drinks with Liz, get to know her, blah, blah, blah. Liz obviously doesn't even want him there. She doesn't like him very much, but of course it's his family's house, so it's not like she can deny him entry, even though I think she still could if she felt that uncomfortable. But, again, she lets him in. She tells him that she has to use the bathroom before, they start having a couple of drinks. At that point, Darren goes down to the kitchen, starts preparing a couple of whiskey glasses with ice. But then suddenly you see the expression on his face change, and instead he opens up one of the drawers and pulls out a meat cleaver. Yes, now we're finally getting to the horror. We see Darren basically sneaking around the house, trying to sneak up on Liz with a meat cleaver in his hand. And what's funny is that once we finish the movie, this scene is very odd, and I'll explain what I mean by that later on. But anyway, we see Darren kind of sneaking up the stairs with the meat cleaver in his hand. Liz sees this. She sees Darren going up the stairs with the meat cleaver, quickly closes and locks the bathroom door, and then suddenly she hears like a little minor commotion, not like a fight or anything that loud, but like maybe, somebody dropped a book bag on the floor or something, and, somebody else is like commenting about it, like, "Oh, damn," or whatever, like there's a little minor commotion going on outside of the bathroom, outside of, where Liz is hiding. Then we see in silhouette only, we see a male body getting dragged up straight into the sky, from inside the house. We don't see what's carrying the body away, but we do see that the head has been severed from the body, and it's just dangling there by a small piece of flesh. So basically, somebody turned Darren into a Pez dispenser, a human Pez dispenser, which obviously it got an audible gasp from the audience, because they absolutely were not expecting that, and neither was I on the first watch, of course. And then that's it. We don't see Darren again. Liz comes out of the bathroom looking around, wondering what's going on. Where's Darren? And then out of nowhere, the garbage disposal turns on by itself while she's in the kitchen alone. She turns it off. She goes to reach into the garbage disposal, which of course gets a reaction from people in the audience at my screening. They're like, "Don't put your hand in there, you idiot." Of course. I mean, I think every horror fan is thinking that when we see it. But no, she's able to stick her hand in there safely, and she pulls out Darren's gold watch. Why is Darren's gold watch in the garbage disposal in the kitchen? And now he's gone. Obviously, Liz is very confused. We, as the audience, know Darren has been dispatched, but we don't know why or by whom at this point. So off we go with the story. Malcolm ends up coming back to the house. And what's funny is that when he comes back and he sees Liz, he gets very scared. He freaks out. Like, he absolutely was not expecting her to still be there. So again, if you're a seasoned horror fan, you kind of, the gears are moving and you're kind of starting to put the story together. Malcolm freaks out a little bit. Oh, right. This was after Liz saw Minka. I skipped the Minka scene. Basically, Minka, the Russian model that Darren brought home, We see her try to escape. We see her try to go through the woods, trying to get away from whatever. But then we see that something catches up to her, literally picks her up like a good 30, 40 feet into the air, and then just drops her right onto the ground. And then that's the end of Minka. But then during this scene, when Malcolm is away and Liz is alone in the house, Minka shows up. And obviously, as the horror audience, we're wondering what the fuck's going on. And, you know, Minka says, I'm inside now. Doesn't explain herself. Literally, that's all she says. I'm inside now. And so is she. And then the camera pans over to a mini version of Minka. Now, my friends, I don't get the metaphor here. I'm sure there is one. It's Oz Perkins. He doesn't do anything by accident. But yeah, I don't mean that there's a little girl, like a young version of Minka. I mean literally like a shrunken version of Minka. It's a double, but she's just a lot smaller. And the little version of Minka goes, "Yeah, I'm inside too now." Which of course, you know, as a horror audience, it's freaking us out a little bit, blah blah blah. She ends up, Liz, that is, ends up turning around, but then when she turns back, it's not Minka anymore. It's a woman who obviously looks like she's been beaten and battered, but she's wearing a plastic bag over her head. And she basically does the heart hands symbol, almost like she's saying, "Oh, I'm the one who drew the little heart on the window for you," you know? Almost showing admiration to her, not trying to scare her or attack her, just, you know, almost like she was just saying hi type thing. But then, you know, Liz kind of blinks her eyes, the thing disappears, and then that's when Malcolm comes back. Liz wants to leave instantly. You know, Liz tries to explain to Malcolm that she's seeing things in the house, that there's people there. There's a woman with a bag over her head, that Minka showed up unexpectedly. And then she explains that Darren showed up. And Malcolm is actually like, "Is he still here?" And he starts calling out to Darren like he's expecting him to still be there. But obviously, Darren is gone. And so Liz wants to leave. Malcolm says, "Just give me a half hour. Let's calm down. Let's relax." You know, he basically pretends to walk around the house looking for anybody that might be hiding in there just to appease Liz. But then eventually we get our explanation, and here we are, folks. Basically, Liz makes one last plea to Malcolm. "I just want to fucking go home. Please take me home. I don't want to be here." And then that's when Malcolm turns into Mr. Serial Killer and says, "Well, I wish I could let you, but I can't allow you to do that." And obviously, Liz's expression changes instantly. She starts crying. She starts saying, "Just let me go, please. Just let's go back to how it was before we met, where we didn't even know each other," blah, blah, blah. But Malcolm, of course, is very stoic, very quiet, and just, again, repeats his answer, "I'm sorry, I can't allow you to do that." And then he explains why. We see young Malcolm and young Darren dressed in colonial clothes. Yes, we find out that Malcolm and Darren are both over 200 years old. Why are they over 200 years old? Well, when they were kids, teenagers, they found a woman in the woods, a pregnant woman who was dancing, dancing in the woods, which of course during colonial times meant you were a witch. They see this woman on their property. According to Malcolm, she's on their property dancing and howling at the moon, as he says, which is illegal. And then we see teenage Malcolm shoot this woman, who, by the way, is also played by Tatiana Maslany, because they look alike, which might be why Malcolm was originally drawn to Liz. I'm not sure. Or it could be the reason why the movie ends the way it does, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Malcolm explains that they took the witch. They didn't kill her when they shot her. They shot her in the back, but she didn't die. They basically took her captive and put her in the pig pen, basically kept her captive with the pigs. Well, one day, the witch gave birth, and she gave birth to these just how can I even put it? Just mounds of flesh. Like they didn't even look humanoid. They looked like little mini mounds of flesh that were, some of them were pulsating, some of them were steaming, like they had steam coming off of them. And we hear the voiceover of Malcolm saying, I don't know what the witch gave birth to, and I didn't care. And we see him put his musket, yes, a musket, to the back of her head and pull the trigger, killing the witch. Now, he says at that point, he was shocked that the creatures started to speak to him. And he told the story of a fisherman catching a fish, the old proverb of a man catches a fish. The fish then starts to speak and says, please, sir, if you release me, I'll grant you 3 wishes. And then Malcolm says, and that's the problem with that story, is that if the fish could grant wishes, why doesn't he just grant himself his own freedom? Get off of the hook by your own accord. And then he gives the explanation that ultimately the fish knows that it's just a fish. It's not this grand being. So hence why he can grant 3 wishes, but he can't give his own freedom. And that's what he compares these creatures to, the children of the witch, as they'll now be known for the rest of this walkthrough. And yeah, these children are very fucked up, but right from birth, they're able to communicate with the brothers, and they basically make a proposal. If the brothers will spare the lives of the witch's children, they will grant them eternal life. But it's not necessarily eternal. It comes at a cost. And you guessed it, there has to be a sacrifice. Yes, so Malcolm and Darren have been sacrificing women to the children of the witch that they killed for over 200 years to keep themselves. I mean, they didn't stay young because obviously they were teenagers when they made the deal, but somehow they aged into adulthood. But now I guess have stopped aging at the ripe old age of 200. So Malcolm explains that Liz is going to die. He literally says it in so many words, which of course makes Liz freak out a little bit. He basically says, you're going to die, and you're going to die in this house. But know that it's not an act of malice. It's an act of love. There is no greater love than you sacrificing your life so that I can extend mine, which, holy shit. Folks, that's probably the closest I've ever felt to an abused woman. Hearing those words are like, are you kidding me? Are you actually fucking kidding me right now? You're going to kill me and then try to justify it by saying that it's great because I'm extending your life. Oh, what a piece of shit. And then we get more yeah, and you know what? I skipped the cold open completely, which if you saw the monkey and you saw the post-credit scene at the end of the monkey, which was the kind of pre-release trailer for this movie, that is the opening scene of this movie, literally shot for shot. What we saw at the end of the monkey is the opening scene of this movie. And what I love about this opening scene is that it basically gives away a lot of what's happening. Yes, we see images of women with blood on their faces screaming, but what I think a lot of people didn't notice is the clothing they were wearing. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but did you notice how the redhead was dressed like she was from the 1800s? The sophisticated older lady was very definitely from the 1950s. The hippie brunette was from the 70s. The Asian girl was from the 80s. I mean, she had a fringed leather jacket on. So instantly that cold open. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say the first couple times, because we get the cold opening and then like we get some flashes of them, various women throughout the movie. At first, I thought it more had to do with like the history of the house itself, just making guesses. But then, like, of course, when we get our reveal, it makes sense why they're, and when she finds the picture too later on.
Yeah. And these women, all these women that we're seeing are specifically Malcolm's women. Do you guys remember earlier when I said Darren called his brother slow? And I thought he was making a reference to his mental health, but no, What he's saying is that Darren, he just basically just gets skanks and models and drug addicts and sacrifices them to the children of the witch. So it doesn't take him very long. He can literally do it in a weekend. Malcolm has this technique or this MO of spending an entire year with these women. So all of the women that Malcolm specifically sacrificed, he spent an entire year of his life with them, had relationship. And with one of the women, he actually got married and had 2 kids. Go figure. So yeah. So I mean, what sick pleasure Malcolm gets out of having a relationship with these women for a year and then sacrificing them to the children of the witch is beyond me, but there it is, folks. So obviously, now that we have our explanation, now that Liz understands that her life is in danger, she basically tries to hide in the house. She tries to call her friend Maggie to try to get her to pick up, but instantly the phone is it's staticky. They can't hear each other. Obviously, something or someone is messing with the satellite signal. The house somehow now seems magically locked, like none of the doors or windows will open. And it's not Malcolm's doing. Malcolm actually explains that, don't even bother trying to leave. The witches, or I mean, the things, I forget what he calls them specifically, the entities or whatever. They lock the house down with their magic. I don't understand it. I don't know what they're doing, but I don't fight it, obviously. So Malcolm is actually in the house when these women are taken by the children of the witch. He doesn't watch. I mean, he actually sits there and says, I don't watch or listen to it because I don't find any pleasure in it. And then he even talks about the neighbors down the road and how they will actually watch and relish it. So this is not just like something isolated to Darren and Malcolm. This is a community-wide thing, but that's the only allusion that we get to the fact that this might be bigger than just Darren and Malcolm. That's literally the only reference we get. It's just a passing line where he says, you should see the neighbors where they fucking enjoy it, So there you go. Again, maybe that's just Osgood building a universe. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a movie with those neighbors later down the line. Who knows? But anyway, Malcolm then leaves Liz alone because, like he says, he doesn't want to watch or listen. He goes to a different separate room in the house. He turns on his music. Liz tries to hide in the house, and she ends up getting attacked by one of the children of the witch that are like crawling up the wall near her. She ends up passing out, and when she wakes up, she's in the basement of the house. And this is our finale. Well, this is the first half of our finale that's going to be very divisive for people. She wakes up in the basement and she sees some kind of altar. She doesn't understand what she's looking at, but it looks like some kind of altar. And then suddenly out of the darkness comes a creature with its mouth just wide open, just a big old gaping maw, drooling the entire time with solid black eyes and white skin. We see this thing walk up to the altar, light one of the candles with magic. It's not like he had a lighter on him. He lights one of the candles, and then we see this big jar of honey on the altar, and we see that inside the jar of honey is a human head. I think because of the long hair on the head, I think it's the witch's head. I think the children of the witch kept her head for whatever sick reason. But yeah, they pull this creature, this gaping maw creature, pulls the head slowly out of the honey and then props it up on the altar. And then with the head attached to it, we see that it's actually a very elementary human structure. So I don't know if it's the witch's bones, like they actually kept her bones or anything, or if it's just a facade, but it's actually her skull on it. Whatever the case may be, it looks pretty fucking gnarly. Anyway, then we see more of the creatures coming out of the woodwork. We see more women in white clothes. We see the baghead woman again. Then we see a woman who's smoking. So obviously she must have been like set on fire when she died, because she's literally like smoking everywhere she goes. I don't mean smoking a cigarette. I mean literally emitting black smoke everywhere that she goes. And then, like I said, we see multiple women, spirits, if you will, come out of the darkness. And then the woman with the bag on her head takes the bag off. And this is where, this is something I would have expected from Guillermo del Toro with him and his wacky creatures. I did not expect this from Osgood Perkins. But yeah, the woman takes the bag off her head, and her head is basically made up of a series of female faces running all the way around the head. So basically, it's got a face all the way around at every angle. I thought this thing looked fucking great. Very obviously CG. But despite that, on second watch, I looked at it because the camera is right up on its face. I mean, it cannot get any more close up than this shot that Oz gives us. And yeah, this thing is gnarly. And basically, Liz asks, "Who are you people?" And the woman looks at Liz and says, "We are your children, and we are the women who came before you." So obviously, we're now understanding that these spirits are... So all of the really fucked up, mutated looking things like the extendo head spirit and, the gaping maw guy, those are the actual children of the witch. They grew up mongoloid, deformed, misshapen, whatever the case may be. But then the others are the victims. They are the women that we saw in the cold open that Malcolm had sacrificed. So they basically all approach Liz. Liz starts laughing maniacally, like she's just completely lost her fucking mind, while the children of the witch and the previous women all walk up to her. They start rubbing her face and touching her body like they're admiring her. And don't forget, like I said, Liz is basically a carbon copy of the witch. So I don't know if she's actually ancestor to this witch. We don't really get that kind of explanation, or if it's just the fact that she looks like her and her children are like, "Oh, that's our mother because she looks like her." So, but basically, the scene ends with all of these things basically surrounding Liz, all reaching towards her, trying to touch her. And then it's the next morning, and Malcolm wakes up in bed the next morning, and we see that suddenly his beard looks a little bit more gray than it was the day before, and his hair looks a little bit more gray. And then he looks down at his arms, and he's got liver spots on his arms. Yes, he's starting to look his age. So I think he's starting to kind of understand what's happening. But then he has a cough fit. Like a lot of old people do, and I'm old, so I know well about the coughing fits. He has a cough fit, and he ends up passing out. When he wakes up, he's even older. Now he literally looks like he's about 100 years old. One of his eyes is glazed over. His teeth, he looks like he's been smoking meth his whole life. His hair is completely white and mostly falling out. So obviously, the children of the witch have decided, Malcolm is no longer going to be working with us. And he's hanging upside down. I forgot to mention, he's basically been hung from a tree upside down by his ankles. And we're seeing him old and decrepit. Suddenly, we see Liz walk up. And what's cool about it is the entire shot with Liz is upside down. Again, because Malcolm is hanging upside down from this tree, and all the shots of Liz are his POV. When Liz walks up to him, she's got completely black eyes. Yes, her eyes are completely black, and she basically has embraced what the children of the witch and the previous women all kind of, said for her. You're our mother. You're, whatever, our new caretaker, whatever the case may be. She has now accepted that role. She now has completely black eyes, and she's having fun with Malcolm too. She's like making fun of him while he's hanging up there. Like I said, I fucking love Tatiana. I love her characters. And then she force feeds him a piece of the cake. Yes, another cake appears, which is kind of funny. Another cake appears. She force feeds him a piece of it. Well, just one bite. He takes one bite. she lets him know, I've decided that we're not going to let you do this anymore. We're not going to let you, not in so many words, but, basically, you're not going to be sacrificing women anymore. And my children are now free, because before they were kind of stuck in this general area in the house or the surrounding land around the house. Like they couldn't leave if they wanted to, because, they had an agreement with Malcolm and Darren. So, and the movie ends with Liz giving one last wry upside down smile into the camera before she lowers Malcolm into a jar of honey. Yes, just like the witch's head was dunked in a jar of honey. I'm assuming it must have been Malcolm and Darren who did that, because I guess this is Liz getting her revenge and dipping Malcolm's head into the honey. And that's the final image of the movie, is literally Malcolm hanging upside down with his head submerged in a jar of honey with a look on his face of absolute fucking terror. And then the movie ends with "I fooled around and fell in love," that great hit from the 70s, which I just thought was just the cherry on top of my fucking Sunday for this movie. Absolutely loved it. Beautiful choice of music. And then think about the song that we heard multiple times throughout the film. There's a song that sounds like it's from the 30s or 40s, and the first couple of lines of the song are, "I don't want to play with you. I don't like you anymore." Think about that. That's the children of the witch talking to Malcolm and Darren, and we hear this song like 3 times throughout the movie. Once Malcolm actually puts it on himself, so it must be something from when they were younger that he enjoyed as well. But yeah, there it is, folks. That is Keeper. Like I said, I did not do the movie justice. I skipped a lot of the cool hallucinations, a lot of the interactions with some of the spirits, with the children of the witch and the previous women. So, like I said, if you haven't seen this and you're a fan of Oz Perkins, I don't think there's any reason you wouldn't like this. I think if you like The Blackcoat's Daughter, I think this one might speak to you at a certain level. Maybe it won't, but I think it will, because I love The Blackcoat's Daughter, obviously. And of all of Osgood's movies, that's the one that it reminded me of the most. Keeper reminded me most of The Blackcoat's Daughter. Maybe a half a step below The Blackcoat's Daughter. Like, that one's an absolute masterpiece. But yeah, for me, like I said, this is not one of Oz's best movies, but it's still an absolute home run for me. It will definitely be on my top 10. So look for me to talk about it at the end of the year once again. And I guess I will shut up for now and hand the mic back over to our fearless leader.
Only if I can grant wishes.
That makes you a fish.
All right. Yeah, I did like this one quite a bit. So that's going to do it for the discussion on Keeper. It sounds like we got 2 votes for Keeper, 1 vote for toss it back into the forest stream. So, what do we got there? I don't think there's a wide theatrical release this week, is there?
No, just Sisu 2. That's
Sisu 2, which I will be seeing.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be rewatching Sisu probably tomorrow night, and then Saturday I'll watch the new one.
I think that is my plan too.
Yeah. Plus, I don't need a reason to watch good Nazi killing action. So,
yeah. It's such an easy watch too. The way it's paced, it just gets right into it and kind of never stops.
Oh, that first one was great. I really, really hope the second one still delivers. I mean, now they've got like name actors in it, so hopefully they don't fall into that trap of throwing money at this director and then him not being able to repeat what he did with the first one. But fingers crossed, because I loved the first one.
All right, before we get out of here, where else can we be heard? I mean, I'll just say right up front, the latest episode of No More Room in Hell is recorded. I will probably get that out by the end of this weekend. Have it ready for Thanksgiving week. I just had a super busy week and weekend at the time of the recording, but I should be nice and calm because Sunday I have no plans, so probably I'll be working on it then. And Venom, what do you got?
Well, for Don and me, we do have a new episode of Creature Comforts in the can. We recorded episode 44 this weekend, where we looked at what the hell did we look at? I forgot already.
Devilfish.
Oh, Devilfish, 1984's Devilfish, also known as Monster Shark, also known as Shark Blood on the Water, also known as Devouring Waves. Yes, this movie has a lot of titles, but if you're a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan like I am, you know it as Devilfish from season 8. So yeah, that is our latest episode. It is recorded. It is not. I'm not done editing it yet. Same as pretty much repeat what Mike just said. I'll have it done sometime this weekend and definitely have it up on the network for Thanksgiving. We have our next episode planned out already because it's a brand new movie that is it's our first true sequel on Creature Comforts. If you guys remember from season 1, our December episode that year, we did Troll, the new Troll, not the classic one. And of course, this year on December 1st, I believe, Troll 2 is being released once again on Netflix, just like the first one was. And that will be episode 45. That'll close out 2025 for us on Creature Comfort. So always good to talk about a brand new movie, something that we haven't talked about anywhere else. So look out for that one. But like I said, episode 44, Devilfish, should be out before Thanksgiving. And that's pretty much it for me. Still waiting on more news about my December guest spots. So as soon as I hear something, I'll let y'all know.
Oh yeah, speaking of guest spots, I totally forgot to mention I just recorded an episode with 22 shots for Italian Horror Month, 3 Bava movies. And because we're recording on a Thursday, they usually release their new episodes like either late Thursday night or Friday. So that should be definitely available by the time you're listening to this episode. So check that out. And yeah, we'll look for something on VOD. There's plenty there.
Yeah.
Is there anything good? I don't know. We'll find out, I guess, on our next episode. And with that, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back in less than a week. Let's say bye to listeners.
No, you guys don't need to know about me showing up on the Joe Blow Horror Show. So later.
You heard it here first. Dawn showed up on the Joe Blow Horror Show. What did you talk about?
We looked at Dead and Breakfast.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
Damn,
Yeah.
I haven't watched that in years.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have that reaction.
All right, so track down the Joe Blow Horror Show. I think all of us have been on there at least once or twice by now.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, so next week, VOD. And let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Never go to your boyfriend's cabin in the woods unless he put a ring on your finger.
Peace.